But first, let's drill down into the challenge facing Labour, and in particular, the challenge from UKIP. UKIP picked up a lot of working class votes and it deprived Labour of dozens of seats it might have won. It also managed to be a runner-up to Labour in 48 seats, where UKIP hopes to be challenging Labour next time round. Well, one of those is Heywood and Middleton, and David Grossman has been there.
The people who once worked in this mill in Haywood, Lancashire, were the people the Labour Party was founded to represent. The mill has long closed. The seats of the mill towns and industrial cities, though, still return many Labour MPs, but for how much longer? UKIP's performance in seats like this shattered the conventional political wisdom. That wisdom had said that Nigel Farage's party was only a threat to the Conservatives. It could cost them votes. It could end up losing them seats. Labour didn't need to worry. Well, guess what? Labour are worried now. Here are the general election winners. Only one UKIP seat. But see how the map changes when you look at who came second. UKIP in 120 seats, 3.8 million votes, many of whom came from Labour. The journey to UKIP began with New Labour, turning its back on its traditional support in the hope of attracting new voters. That's according to political scientist Rob Ford, who's written one of the set texts on UKIP.
That was the Blair gamble, was we can pitch for South England because North England and working class England will stay loyal to us even if we stop talking about the things that concern them. And that worked fine for a decade, although already in 2001 turnout plummeted in precisely the kinds of seats we're now seeing voters turning to UKIP. So even 15 years ago we were seeing evidence that these voters were losing faith in Labour. What they didn't have yet was a credible alternative to express that disaffection. Now we're seeing those chickens come home to roost because those are the voters that disaffected working class voters who are now going in behind UKIP.
Immigration, top of the list. NHS. Jobs.
Here is one of those voters, Jenny Rigby. She says she's always voted Labour in the past, but no more. Back in 2014, UKIP nearly took this seat, Heywood and Middleton, in a by-election. Although Labour's majority improved at the general election, Jenny is not going back.
They got complacent, thinking that they have the right to those votes because they've always had the votes. I think people are getting stronger now in voicing their opinions.
The Labour candidate, Jenny says, never wanted to engage with her concerns.
Well, that candidate has actually walked past my shop when I had a UKIP sign in the window, took a glare at it and walked past. Now, if that was myself, I would have walked in, excuse me, and said, you know, you're perfectly entitled to vote for who you want, but could you explain to me why you're not happy with Labour? Nothing.
And you can see here they've had an astonishing performance. 32% share of the vote at this seat.
Labour did win this seat, but the victorious Labour candidate doesn't seem keen to change the party's message to fight off UKIP.
Do you need to change anything about your message to try and get those people back, or do you just hope they come back of their own accord?
I think we've got to stick to our principles as a Labour Party. I mean, I don't think that we should say what people want to hear, because I think that's what UKIP do. I don't think we should lose sight of the principles of the Labour Party, which is about fairness and equality.
The defeated UKIP candidate in Heywood and Middleton says that attitude is typical of Labour. Remember, he says, Gordon Brown's meeting with Gillian Duffy. All that's been holding the Labour vote together, he says, is tribal loyalty.
This might be the start of that tribal loyalty breaking down, just as it's done in Scotland. You know, if you think back 10 years, if you'd have said we'd have a Scottish government, taking all of the seats, Scottish party, I should say, taking all of the seats in a general election, people would have thought, you'd had too many. And that's not that long ago. That could happen down in England, and a UKIP could be the lightning rod, could be the party that picks up that disillusionment that voters have.
If you take a seat like Hartlepool, for example, or Grimsby, UKIP can win a section of the tribal Labour electorate over and add to it a big chunk of the Conservative vote who might back UKIP on the basis that this time they have a chance to win under a UKIP banner. And that coalition could be an election-winning coalition in seats where Labour would never have considered the possibility of a credible challenge before.
So how should Labour respond? Can it respond And what sort of leader would win back voters from UKIP?
I'd like to see our leader represent working people. I think in terms of the leader, there can be a perception that it is all led from here. And I think it would send a very clear message to the country if our leader is maybe even has a northern accent. You know, I think that would be good for the country. I think it'd be good for us as a Labour Party.
The Haywood mill pond now attracts anglers. If Labour does try to fish for the voters nibbling at UKIP, well, they could have a huge problem. They could scare away the more affluent southern voters or the more cosmopolitan big city voters that it can't do without either.